Hi everyone, welcome back. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. Some words cut so deep they change everything. And sometimes the most devastating truths come from the people we love most. My name is Theo, and this is the story of how one brutal comment from my wife revealed the transactional nature of our marriage and led me to something none of us saw coming. I'm 31 years old and work as a manager for a mid-sized company in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's demanding work, and I'm often the first one in the office and the last one to leave. But the job pays well, which has allowed me to provide a comfortable lifestyle for my wife, Ashley, and myself. Ashley is 29, and she used to work as an elementary school teacher before we got married 4 years ago. The plan was always for her to transition to being a full-time homemaker once we started having children. She loved working with kids, talked constantly about wanting to be a mother, and we both agreed that having one parent home would be best for our future family. Unfortunately, life didn't cooperate with our plans. Ashley got pregnant twice during our second year of marriage, and both times we lost the baby in the first trimester. The emotional toll was devastating for both of us, but especially for Ashley. After the second miscarriage, she told me she couldn't handle trying again, that the stress and heartbreak were too much for her mental health. I completely understood and supported her decision. Losing those pregnancies was heartbreaking for me, too, and I could see how much the process was affecting Ashley's emotional well-being. We agreed that children weren't in our immediate future, and that was okay. Many couples live fulfilling lives without kids, and I was committed to building that kind of life with her if it comes to that. What I expected was that Ashley would eventually return to work, since the original reason for staying home, raising children, was no longer part of our plan. But months turned into a year, and Ashley showed no interest in finding employment. When I gently suggest that she might want to look into substitute teaching or find another job she'd enjoy, she'd say she was still processing the losses and wasn't ready to think about working again. I didn't want to pressure her during what was clearly a difficult emotional period, so I continued carrying all our financial responsibilities. Ashley had complete access to our joint checking account and 2 credit cards that were technically in my name, but that she used freely. At first, Ashley's spending was reasonable. She'd buy groceries, occasionally shop for clothes, and maybe have lunch with friends. But over time, her purchases became more expensive and frequent. Designer handbags, high-end skincare products, expensive dinners at trendy restaurants, weekend spa treatments. The kind of lifestyle choices that made sense if both partners were contributing financially, but felt excessive when only one person was working. I tried not to be resentful. Ashley had been through trauma with the pregnancy losses, and if buying nice things helped her feel better, I could absorb the extra expense. My salary was sufficient to cover our needs and reasonable wants. I told myself that marriage meant supporting each other through difficult times, and this was just my way of caring for someone I loved. But the spending kept escalating. The shopping trips became frequent. Monthly spa treatments became regular. Ashley started buying expensive home decor items, premium organic groceries, and clothing from boutiques rather than department stores. She developed expensive tastes in everything from wine to skincare to fitness classes. When I'd receive our monthly credit card statements, I'd feel a knot in my stomach seeing the totals. But whenever I'd try to discuss our budget or suggest we scale back on discretionary spending, Ashley would become defensive. She'd say I was being controlling, that she wasn't spending that much money compared to her friends, that I made a good income and should be happy to provide for my wife. The pattern that really started bothering me was how Ashley never seemed grateful for the lifestyle I was providing. She never acknowledged the long hours I put in to maintain our financial stability. She treated our comfortable life like something she deserved rather than something we were fortunate to afford because of my career. The breaking point came when I was reviewing our bank statements and noticed something that made my blood run cold. Beyond Ashley's personal spending, there were regular transfers of large amounts to external accounts. $500 here, $800 there, sometimes over $1,000 at a time. When I investigated further, I realized these transfers were going to accounts belonging to Ashley's family members. Her brother had received over $3,000 in the past 4 months, and her sister had gotten multiple transfers totaling nearly $2,000 that I'd never been informed about. In total, Ashley had sent over $7,000 to her family in the past 6 months without discussing any of it with me. I was stunned. $7,000 wasn't pocket change for us. That money could have paid down our car loans, contributed to retirement savings, or covered several months of our mortgage. Instead, it had been distributed to Ashley's family members for reasons I knew nothing about, using money I'd earned through hard work and constant stress. That evening, I decided to address the situation directly. Ashley was in our living room watching television when I sat down with the bank statements spread out on our coffee table. I showed her the transfer history and asked what these payments were for and why she hadn't discussed them with me before sending out such large amounts. Ashley's reaction was immediate defensiveness. She said her family occasionally needed help with expenses, that it was natural for family members to support each other, and that she shouldn't need permission to help people she loved. When I pointed out that $7,000 in 6 months was more than occasional help, she accused me of being selfish and insensitive. The conversation escalated quickly. I tried to explain that I wasn't opposed to helping family in genuine emergencies, but that regularly sending large amounts without discussion felt like a betrayal of our financial partnership. Ashley responded by saying that since I was the only one working, money decisions were ultimately mine to make, but that I shouldn't micromanage every dollar she spent. That comment hit me wrong. I said, "Do you even realize how hard I work to keep us comfortable? You spend like money grows on trees." I wasn't trying to be mean, but I was frustrated that she seemed to take my financial contributions for granted while having no limits on her spending. Ashley's response was like a slap in the face. She said, "Well, that's your job. You're the man, you make the money. What else are you good at?" I stared at her, shocked that she'd reduced my value as a husband to my earning capacity. I asked if she really thought I was only useful for the money I provided, if everything else about me meant nothing compared to my paycheck. Instead of backing down or apologizing, Ashley pushed further. In a moment of complete honesty that she probably immediately regretted, she said, "You're just a paycheck to me. That's it." The room went silent. I didn't yell or argue. I just sat there absorbing the fact that my wife of 4 years had just told me that my only value to her was financial. That everything I thought we'd built together was actually just a comfortable arrangement where I provided money and she provided nothing in return. Ashley seemed to realize immediately that she'd gone too far. She started backtracking, saying she was angry and didn't mean it the way it sounded. But the damage was done. You can't unsay something that brutally honest, especially when it explains so much about how someone really sees you. I went to bed that night without saying another word about the conversation. In the days that followed, Ashley tried to act like everything was normal, chatting about her plans for the next day and asking about my work schedule. I responded politely, but felt completely disconnected from her, like I was talking to a stranger who'd been pretending to care about me for years. The more I thought about our marriage, the more her comment explained everything that had been bothering me. Her lack of gratitude for my financial support made sense if she saw it as something I owed her rather than something I chose to provide. Her resistance to returning to work made sense if she viewed me as a permanent income source rather than a partner. Her escalating spending made sense if she saw my money as hers by right rather than ours by cooperation. Ashley's willingness to send thousands of dollars to family members without discussion made sense if she viewed my paycheck as her personal resource rather than our shared household budget. Even her defensiveness about spending made sense if she genuinely believed I existed primarily to generate income for her use. After some days, I'd reached a decision. I decided to show her what life would look like if I really were just a paycheck, and if that paycheck needed protection. I called our bank and requested to speak with someone about account management. I explained that I wanted to make some changes to how our accounts were structured and what access different cards provided. The process was simpler than I'd expected. Since I was the primary account holder and all the credit cards were in my name with Ashley as an authorized user, I had complete control over spending limits and account access. I asked the bank to freeze the 2 credit cards Ashley used most frequently, leaving only small emergency limits active. I also opened a new checking account in my name only and transferred most of our savings there, leaving just enough in our joint account to cover household bills. I wanted to eliminate her ability to make large discretionary purchases or send money to family members without my knowledge. The bank representative confirmed that these changes would take effect immediately and that any attempts to use the frozen cards would be declined. I felt a mixture of satisfaction as I completed the paperwork. Satisfaction that I was finally setting boundaries. Sadness that my marriage had deteriorated to the point where financial controls were necessary. From Ashley's perspective, everything looked normal that evening. I came home at my usual time, we ate dinner together, and I didn't mention the banking changes. I was curious to see how long it would take for her to discover the new restrictions and what her reaction would be. I didn't have to wait long. The next afternoon, my phone started buzzing with text messages and missed calls from Ashley. I was in a client meeting and couldn't answer immediately, but I could see her messages getting increasingly frantic. By the time I could step away and call her back, she was nearly hysterical. Ashley had gone shopping at her favorite boutique and tried to purchase a dress. When her first credit card was declined, she assumed it was a technical error and tried the second card. When that was also declined, she felt embarrassed and confused, making excuses to the sales associate about banking glitches. She'd driven straight to our bank branch and demanded to speak with someone about the card issues. That's when she learned that the accounts had been restructured by the primary holder and that her spending access had been significantly limited. The bank employee couldn't provide details about my reasoning, only confirmed that the changes were legitimate and had been made at my request. When I finally called Ashley back, she was alternating between rage and panic. She demanded to know what I'd done to the accounts, why her cards weren't working, and how I could make such decisions without consulting her. Her voice was shaking with a combination of anger and genuine fear. I remained calm during this conversation, which seemed to frustrate her even more. I told her that I'd made some financial adjustments to better protect our household budget. When she demanded specifics, I said, "You told me I'm just a paycheck to you. If that's all I am, then I need to protect my paycheck." Ashley tried several different approaches to manipulate me into reversing the changes. First, she claimed I was overreacting to something she'd said in anger. Then she accused me of being controlling and financially abusive. When those strategies didn't work, she tried bargaining, promising to be more careful with spending if I'd restore her access. I didn't budge. I explained that I would continue paying all our household bills. Our basic needs would be met without any inconvenience to her. But the extras would stop immediately. For the first time in our marriage, Ashley realized that her comfortable lifestyle wasn't guaranteed. She'd grown accustomed to unlimited spending freedom, and the sudden restrictions felt like a personal attack rather than a natural consequence of her own words. Ashley's reaction over the following weeks revealed just how transactional our relationship had become. Instead of apologizing for calling me a paycheck or trying to rebuild emotional intimacy, she focused entirely on regaining financial access. She'd bring up the frozen cards multiple times per day, arguing about why she needed money for various purchases or activities. She even threatened to leave me if I didn't restore her spending privileges, apparently not realizing that such threats only confirmed her priorities. Someone who loved me would be devastated by the emotional distance between us. Someone who saw me as a paycheck would be focused on restoring access to that paycheck. The marriage deteriorated rapidly after that. Ashley resented me for setting financial boundaries and began acting out in ways she knew would bother me. She'd stay out late without explanation, ignore my calls, and refuse to contribute to household tasks she'd previously handled. She seemed to be testing whether I'd restore her financial access in exchange for better behavior. I resented Ashley for reducing me to a financial resource and showing no genuine remorse for the hurt she caused. Every conversation felt strained and superficial. We were living like hostile roommates rather than married partners. After about 2 months of this Cold War, I started meeting with a divorce lawyer. I realized that our marriage wasn't built on love and mutual respect. It was a financial arrangement where I provided income and Ashley provided the appearance of companionship. Once that became clear, there was no foundation left to rebuild. The lawyer helped me understand how asset division would work in North Carolina and what I could expect from divorce proceedings. Since Ashley hadn't worked during most of our marriage, she might be entitled to some spousal support, but my recent documentation of her excessive spending and family transfers would help establish reasonable limits. When Ashley was served with divorce papers, she seemed genuinely shocked that I'd taken such a drastic step. She asked for a meeting where she could explain herself and try to save our marriage. During that conversation, she finally admitted that calling me a paycheck had been cruel and wrong, but said she'd only lashed out because she felt attacked about her spending. Ashley promised she could change, could be more appreciative of my work, could contribute more to our household. But her apologies fell hollow because they were motivated by fear of losing financial security rather than genuine remorse for hurting someone she loved. She was willing to show gratitude and affection to maintain access to my income, which only proved her original comment had been honest. I told Ashley that some words can't be taken back and some truths can't be unlearned. Once someone tells you they see you as just a paycheck, you can't pretend they value you as a person. Once someone shows they're willing to stay in a marriage purely for financial benefit, you can't trust their expressions of love. The divorce process took about 18 months, which was longer than I'd hoped, but not unusual for contested proceedings. Ashley fought for significant spousal support and tried to claim that my freezing her cards constituted financial abuse. But the documented evidence of her excessive spending and her own admission that she saw me as a paycheck undermined her claims. The final settlement was fair but firm. Ashley received some transitional support to help her get back on her feet, but not enough to maintain the luxury lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to. She was forced to find employment and scale back her spending to sustainable levels. Today, I live alone in a smaller house and have complete control over my financial decisions. I don't miss the stress of wondering what expensive purchase Ashley would make next, or discovering surprise transfers to her family members. I don't miss feeling unappreciated for the long hours I work, or having my value reduced to my earning capacity. The loneliness is sometimes difficult, but it's preferable to being in a relationship where I'm valued only for what I can provide rather than who I am. I'm looking for someone who sees a relationship as a partnership where both people contribute according to their abilities and circumstances. Someone who appreciates hard work rather than taking it for granted. Someone who would never dream of calling their partner a paycheck because they understand that people are worth far more than the money they earn. Ashley taught me that some people will happily accept financial support while offering nothing meaningful in return. She showed me that comfortable lifestyles can become expectations rather than gifts, and that entitlement can masquerade as love for years before revealing its true nature. But she also taught me that I have the power to set boundaries and protect my interests. That I don't have to accept being treated as a financial resource rather than a human being. That walking away from a comfortable arrangement can be the first step toward finding a genuine relationship. If you're in a relationship where you feel more like a provider than a partner, where your contributions are taken for granted rather than appreciated, where money seems to matter more than connection, pay attention to those feelings. Real love doesn't reduce people to their financial utility. Everyone deserves a partner who values their character, effort, and heart rather than just their earning capacity. Everyone deserves someone who would choose to be with them regardless of financial circumstances. And everyone has the right to protect themselves from relationships that are more about transaction than affection. Sometimes the most honest thing someone can say to you is also the most hurtful. But honesty, even when it's cruel, can also be liberating. It can free you from relationships that were never real and open you up to connections that actually matter. I'm grateful now for Ashley's brutal honesty, even though it ended our marriage. She told me exactly what I meant to her, and I finally listened. Sometimes the truth hurts, but it also sets you free.